So when will you switch to DaVinci? I get this question quite a lot and I think it's time to answer it, but it may not be what you expect. So judging by the content on this channel, you may think of me as the Premiere Pro guy, but the fact is I have been using Resolve since 2016, when its editing capabilities were very limited and it was mostly a color grading software. And here are a few shots I graded for the company I worked at back then. But Blackmagic was introducing new features, new editing features each year, and back in 2017 I edited my first commercial in Resolve. But back then it wasn't a good NLE. For example, you couldn't change the frame rate of the project when you were already editing it. And I remember that for this commercial I got a wrong specification from the client and I had to redo the whole edit once again, just because this frame rate limitation. Seriously. Luckily it was only 30 seconds, so I already knew all the editing choices, all the takes that I used, so rebuilding it was relatively a short process. And a few years later they really focused on improving their editing capabilities, and Resolve these days is by many considered a better NLE than Premiere Pro. And I understand that, I really do. In fact, I have recommended Resolve to many starting out editors who didn't want to pay monthly. Also, people who are switching from Premiere Pro to Resolve say that Premiere Pro is outdated, that the features and tools in Resolve are kind of like a new generation thing and Adobe is still living in the Stone Age. And while I not necessarily agree with that last sentence, at the same time, yeah, some tools in Resolve are really well made. But even taking all of that into equation, I still can't switch to Resolve for a few reasons. And the first one is customization, because you can customize pretty much anything in Premiere Pro. Workspaces, timelines, shortcuts, panels, pretty much anything. And the second one is control, because customization gives me a feeling of control, that I control how it works, how it looks, and so on. I don't get this feeling in Resolve. And the third one is stability. Hear me out. I know how it sounds. You're like, come on, Premiere Pro stability sucks. Not in my experience, like sorry, but my experience is different. Whenever I go to Resolve, I experience some stability issues over there. Maybe not whenever, but quite often. In Premiere, because I know the best practices to use it well, I very rarely face stability issues. Not to say that I don't have to troubleshoot like ever, sometimes I do and it's frustrating, but my experience is that like in Resolve, you have those issues as well. And in my case, more often than in Premiere Pro. And the fourth one is the whole ecosystem, because like with Photoshop, Illustrator, and so on, sometimes I use this software as well, and having it all in one family, especially After Effects, and you know how it works between those applications is very useful and I think very convenient to me. And I could add the fifth one, that most clients expect you to use Adobe products, at least in the video space, not so much in narrative projects, where Avid is the most prominent NLE. But obviously that changes and some clients actually require you to use Resolve these days. And by the way, if they do, or sometimes even if they don't, but it's a very color grading heavy project that I, suspect it will be at least, then I will use Resolve anyway. But really thinking about all those YouTubers that switch from Premiere Pro to Resolve, in some cases, if they have been frustrated with stability because of some, system incompliance that they have, it might have been a decision-making factor as well. But I think mostly it's about a monthly fee you have to pay for using Adobe products. And by the way, I used to own a lifetime license, like a Master Collection 6, I think it was called. It was quite an investment, but at least you paid once, right? And you just owned the software. And while I'm still not a huge fan of this monthly subscription for Adobe, I feel that these days you at least get stuff for it. So you get like transcriptions, unlimited transcriptions, and you get quite a lot of AI credits that you can use across applications. So it kind of justifies the monthly payment. But because all of that I already mentioned, right, I don't think that Premiere Pro's position on the market is safe, especially these days with the advancement of AI tools. And I already started using AI tools myself for my editing workflow, which I talked about in my video about free prompts pack for editors. For example, could a tool like Edit AI become a standard in near future, like in a few years? I think it could. It very well could. And probably if I would make a video where I'm switching to Resolve, it would get many views. So I probably should have done it. Yet I don't think it would make sense for me. I really don't. changing a workflow, rewiring my muscle memory, the knowledge of good practices for stability of the software. All these things make switching not worth it to me, which doesn't stop me from saying that Resolve is great and I will use it if the client requires it or if the project is very much color grading heavy. After all, I made a version of Essential Motion for Resolve because I wanted to have it for those situations. Link in the description, of course, if you happen to use Resolve but you don't have Essential Motion copy. But for my first choice, I think I will stick to Premiere Pro, where customizability, familiarity, and the whole ecosystem works pretty well. And I feel good about it. I don't think you should feel bad about it. While the cost of Premiere Pro is not neglectable, unfortunately, the cost of switching could be greater. New effects, new workflow, new practices, all of that is cost of switching that people don't talk about. All of that can derail your editing flow, and sometimes that's just not worth it. But whatever your choice in that situation and your approach to workflow, to software and so on, just remember that this is just a hammer. And if there is a nail or a construction site where they require you to use a different hammer, just learn to use it well. Till the next time.